Yahuwah is your guard. Yahuwah is your shade. At your right hand, the sun does not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Yahuwah guards you from all evil. He guards your being. Yahuwah guards your going out and your coming in now and forever.
What are the virtues of a noble woman? Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she shall rejoice at the day to come. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the law of kindness is on her tongue. The heart of her husband does trust in her. Who can find a woman of virtue? For her value is far above jewels. Many are the daughters who have done excellent things, noble things, but you, O daughter of Yah, excel above them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears Yah, she shall be praised. Greetings in the name of Yah the Father, who is head over all, and our Master YAHUSHA MESSIAH. Welcome to Daughter of Yah Teaching Ministry. Shabbat shalom to the Mizpachah, to the family of Yah. Greetings in the name of Yah the Father, who is head over all, and our Master Yahusha Messiah. Shabbat shalom, sis. How are you doing today?
Shabbat shalom. What a beautiful, beautiful Sabbath. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just grateful once again that the Father Yah has shown me his mercy, has allowed me to enter into his presence once again. I
Yes,
want to start off with thanking. I'm like still in awe. If you did not get an opportunity to
yes,
go and witness, because it is something to behold, the glory of Yah, you did not get an opportunity to witness how he moved mountains for me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yes, on Monday of this week, the Father Yah on the 4th, which was December the 4th, on Monday, he moved mountains. I don't want to tell anyone, I don't want to have a spoiler or anything. If you have not checked that out, please go back after today's message whenever you get an opportunity. It's about 38 minutes, something like that. But I give an awesome testimony. Yah gets the glory for how
yeah,
he moved for me. And I just want to thank each and every person who has been sending money. I'm telling you, you have given me, I've already hoped in his word and know his word is true, but you are just confirmation of what true brothers and sisters are supposed to do. And I thank you for those of you who have considered me laboring in this truth, honoring me in this way of caring for my needs during this trial that the Father Yah has taken me through. And he says gives to the poor, gives to the Father Yah. So I want to thank you all because you have all helped steady as Aaron and her held the arms of Moses when he began to get tired and weak of holding his arm up when they were going to battle against Amalek. The brethren held his arms up and held him steady. That is what we're supposed to be doing, supporting one another while we're going through this journey. He didn't say it was going to be easy. He never said he was going to take us away from struggling, from suffering. But we, the body, when one is struggling, we all struggle. When one is suffering, we all suffer. And we have to understand that oneness. And so I wanted to, before I began today's teaching, wanted to take the time out to thank each and every one of you, because you have truly touched my heart in a way that I cannot even express in mere words. I long for the day where we can be in the kingdom all together in love with one another. I just long for that day. And so, but yeah, so this week, was a blessing. I cannot I cannot complain. The Father Yah moved for me mightily. When he said I answered your prayers, he definitely did. So I want,
Yeah.
if you did not get an opportunity to go back, it's called My Faithfulness Testimony. The Father Yah moved mountains. Go back in our channel and go and watch that. Were you gonna say something?
Yes, I was just gonna say such a beautiful, beautiful testimony and blessing. It just brought so much joy to my heart. And I was just, like you said, in awe with Yah and in all that he does. So I just give praise to Yah and just all the brothers and sisters out there that, listening and praying for us and sending us. Just give praise to Yah because he is.
Praises, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Everyone has been, after so many people were touched by this testimony. I was constantly getting text messages that people were emailing the ministry. I want to give. Like, I was so touched. This testimony had me in tears. Like, people were just have been giving. And this is what we're supposed to do. So often we've given to these wolves and sheep clothing that don't care for the flock. And then those who are truly laboring in the truth, those who are truly strengthening your walk with the Father, we don't even want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm so grateful. I wanted to start off today's message by doing that. And so I'm going to go ahead and get into today's message. We're continuing with the series of the fruit of the Spirit. And today we are going to focus on self-control. Self-control wasn't on the front, but we're going to make it do what it do. We're focusing on self-control. And so we've already done love. That was our very first fruit. And then we follow that up with goodness. And then we continue with patience, which is long suffering. And then Sister Prina did kindness. And on last Shabbat, we did faithfulness. And today we are focusing on self-control. And so before we begin, I treat every Sabbath as if those who are watching are with us for the first time, because we have new listeners, those who are fellowshipping, those who have subscribed to the channel, the teaching ministry, for the very first time, and maybe they have not seen it. So for those of you, if this is your first time, and it's also good to continue to refresh ourselves, right, with the word of Yah. We can never read it enough. We can never learn it enough. And so why did the Father Yah, why is it that we're told that we have to bear the fruit of the Spirit according to Galatians 5 and 22 into 23? Why? Because fruit literally means Abba, Father. It is spelled Aleph Bet. Aleph Bet, reading from right to left, spells Father. Okay? So to be fruitful is to be like the Father. This is a reason why it was the very first command that was given to mankind, to be fruitful and multiply. Why? Because fruitful literally means Abba, Father. That command to be fruitful and multiply literally means to be like me, the Father. You were created in my image and after my likeness. Be like me, the Father, and continue. because to multiply, when anything multiply, it continues. Okay? It adds on to what it is like. Each thing that the Father Yah created in creation, they were created after their own kind. And so he created mankind. We were the only ones that were created in his image and according to his likeness. So we were created to be just like him. And so why is it called the fruit of the Spirit? Well, another word for fruit means to fill. Okay, it says filling, an increase of produce, usually of fruit. And so we're called and told that, and we know that we want to be filled with the fruit of the Spirit. We want to be filled with the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart Spirit of Yah, because his Spirit fills that empty space. And so this is the reason why we're focusing on the fruits, because it literally is when we're growing in the fruits and we're doing what we were supposed to do in the beginning, which was to be fruitful and to multiply. So if we are bearing the fruits of the Spirit, according to Galatians chapter 5, 22 and 23, if we're bearing the fruits of the Spirit, not the works of the flesh, but the fruits of the Spirit, that means that we are doing what he commanded us. We are being fruitful. That means we're continuing to be like our Father, and we're multiplying because we're increasing. We have to grow in the fruits of the Spirit, and those who bear no fruit are none of his. So let's start off, since we're focusing today on the fruit of self-control. Let's start off with what is self-control? Okay, I'm going to, before I go into the ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible, we're going to go to thesaurus.com. And so self-control says it's abstinence, avoidance, self-denial, self-restraint, and sobriety. So when we think about self-denial, immediately the Ruach led me to Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 through 26. Then Yahusha said to his disciples, any man desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life for my name's sake, for my sake, for me, if you are willing to lose your life for me, he said, that is when you will find it. So Yahusha told his disciples, if anyone wants to come after me, if you want to follow me, the first thing that you must do is to deny yourself. And so he is literally saying in context to have self-control. You have to have self-denial. That is what self-control is. Self-denial, to deny yourself, to have self-restraint, to have sobriety, to be sober, to be of a sound mind. Okay. In the Blue Letter Bible, in context for deny himself, according to Matthew 16 here, it says to affirm that one has no acquaintance or connection with someone. Okay, that means to forget oneself. You forget yourself, you lose sight of yourself and your own interests and your own desires. Okay, you're denying your desires, your interests. Okay, we live in a world now where everyone wants to fulfill their dreams, their hopes, their desires, and we're not going to the Father and asking him, what is your will? Not my will, but your will. What is your will for me? Place your desires in my heart. When it says in Psalms 37 that the Father Yah will give you the desires of your heart, it does not mean whatever you desire, whatever it is that's in your heart, whatever it is you want, then he's going to give it to you. No, it means he's going to place what you should desire in your heart. That's what we should be praying right now. Father, not my will, but your will. What is your desire? Give me your desires. Place your desires in my heart. You give them to me. You tell me what I should be chasing after, what I should be longing for, and what I should be doing. And so that's what it means in context, according to the Blue Letter Bible in Matthew 16, where it says, deny himself. If you desire to come after him, to follow him, you have to deny yourself. That means you have to forget your own self, not where the world is telling you to raise your self-esteem, to esteem yourself. We're in a world of vanity right now, complete and utter vanity. Everyone is looking to themselves, staring at themselves, self-care. A lot of the things you see in social media, self-care and self this and self that, is nothing but vainglory and idolatry and worship of oneself. He says you must deny yourself. That means you must forget yourself. Okay, you have to realize and humble yourself and know I'm not important. He is to be exalted, not me. To forget oneself, to lose sight of oneself and one's own interests. Okay, so this is what it means to abstain. And it means to utterly disown yourself, because it's not about you, it's about him. And self-control is also, oftentimes when you look in the scriptures, self-control is temperance. Okay, temperance, even in the ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible, which we're going to go to in a moment, it did not have self-control. It has temperance, which is the same thing. It is a synonym. Okay, so when it speaks of temperance, which is self-control, is being used as a noun. When it's being used as a noun, as in self-restraint, as in abstinence, meaning to be forbearing, to be in moderation. We're going to talk about being moderate, to have self-discipline, okay, to have control, to be able, when you have self-control, you are able to use wisdom. And that's where that discretion comes in. You know when to do things at the appointed time. Sometimes it may be right to do a certain thing, but wisdom will tell you when to do that. Okay, when is it best? You're able to look at the whole picture and you don't just have tunnel vision. Okay, you're able to use discretion. You're able to say, okay, if I do this, you're looking ahead of what the consequences and what the outcome is going to be based off of the actions or the choices, the action you take or the choices that you make. It talks about prudence. Remember, we did a lesson on prudence. Is practicing sacrifice, restraint, sobriety, all of these things. When you have temperance, you ever seen someone and say, well, he has a bad temper or she has a bad temper? This means it's someone who does not have self-control, or they lack self-control and self-discipline, someone who has outbursts of anger. Okay. It also says that self-control, it has to do with your attitude, your character, the decisions that you make. You can tell when someone has self-control by the decisions that they make. It has to do also with what you desire. And are you able to practice restraint with the things that you desire? If you drink, do you drink and you get drunk? Or do you just have a nice, small glass of wine with a meal, maybe on the Sabbath? What are the things that you desire, and do you have restraint? That goes even down to the foods that we eat, the things we put in our mouth. If we know that we're eating things that is going to make us sick, that we know that is not good for our body, we still continue to do those things. This means that you have a lack of self-control, okay? Because it is controlling you. Having self-control means you have power. You're not allowing anything or anyone to rule over you, okay? It has to do with your mind. It has to do with the appetites. People have appetites for lust and gratifying the lust of the flesh. And there it talks about pleasure. Your temperament, your urges, all of those things, what you yearn for, your willpower. And at the end, when it says a harsh desire, really that's what it, comes down to. And so self-control, which is temperance, according to the ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible, I was surprised that it means to season with salt. Temperance, which is self-control, means to season with salt. To season with salt. And I said, wow, to season with salt. And so the Ruach led me to go to Wikipedia and just look up some things about salt, the role that salt plays in the Bible. And so I have exactly what was written, and I'm going to read it. So Wikipedia says the role of salt in the Bible is relevant to understanding Hebrew society during the Old Testament and New Testament periods. Salt is a necessity of life and was a mineral that was used since ancient times in many cultures as a seasoning, a preservative, a disinfectant, a component of ceremonial offerings, and a unit of exchange. The Bible contains numerous references to salt. In various contexts, it is used metaphorically to signify permanence, loyalty, durability, fidelity, okay, usefulness, value, and purification. And immediately I was taken to Matthew 5:13, which says that you are the salt of the earth. The Messiah, Yahusha, is telling his disciples that you are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. So we see when he says that we are the salt of the earth, you have to think about salt makes everything better. Salt makes everything better. I want to read this. Luke 17, verses 32 and 33. 32 and 33. It says, remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. And so we have to think about that. Let's think about this for a moment. We just learned that salt, a part of the function of salt is to preserve life. It said preservation, according to Wikipedia. Now, Yahusha told you, he says, whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it. Remember, he said, those who desire to follow after me, let him deny himself. If you're willing to lose your life for his sake, remember, we just got finished reading that. Now, whoever seeks to preserve his life, he brought it back to using salt as an example. He brought his disciples back to remembering what happened to Lot's wife. He says, remember Lot's wife. Anytime we hear remember, this means this is something that you should never forget, that you should always keep at the forefront of your mind. Just like he said, remember the Sabbath day. He said, remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it. Salt represents preservation. And he says, whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. Well, she sought to preserve her life. She looked back at that life. She did not deny herself. And what happened? He said, whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it. This is why she turned into a pillar of salt. This is why she turned into a pillar of salt, because she sought to preserve her life, the life that she was told to turn away from. Don't even look back. Only that goes back to lick up his own vomit. He says, if you put your hand to the plow to look back, to turn back, you're not fit for the kingdom. She lost her life. Trying to preserve it, salt represents preservation. This is the reason why she turned into a pillar of salt. And so let's talk about salt for a moment. Salt in the Bible, again, it represents purity. It represents preservation, as we just learned. It represents endurance, and it represents covenant. Yes, salt represents covenant. And so let's talk about the salt covenant, because as I was doing my research and looking throughout scriptures, I saw that the grain offerings and all of our meat offerings, Father Yah said that it had to contain salt. He made a covenant of salt with David and his sons. He made a covenant of salt with the Levitical priesthood. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that, and I've read this before, but I guess I had not paid attention to why he wanted salt in the meat offering and the grain offerings, that he actually made a covenant of salt with the Levites and with David and his sons, okay, whom we are. And so salt does not burn in fire. Let me say this again. Salt does not burn in fire. I began doing some research, okay, about salt. Salt does not burn in fire. Let me say this again. Salt does not burn in fire. Think about that when we're under trial, when we're in the fire. Salt will smother out fire. It will smother it almost like a lid, like covering over the fire, because it deprives the fire of oxygen. Okay? And so I want to read something. I'm going to read Mark chapter 9, verses 43 through 50. Okay? And when your hand causes you, he said, and if your hand causes you to sin, and this is the Mashiach, the Messiah, Yahusha speaking again, he's speaking to his disciples. He said, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. For it is better for you to enter into life maimed than having two hands to go away into Gehenna, into the unquenchable fire, where their worm does not die and the fire is not put out. Okay, so the fire is not put out there. Okay, those who are going to think, remember, if you have salt, we're supposed to have salt in us. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. So if you don't have salt, if you're not the salt of the earth, you have no ability to put the fire out. That's the reason why those who are going into hell is going to be unquenchable, because they cannot put it out. It says where their worm does not die and the fire is not put out, verse 45. And I'm in Mark chapter 9, verse 45. And if your foot, Yahusha says, if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. For it is profitable for you to enter into life lame. And I just had this dream. I just had a dream of a lame dog that was, this dog was seeking life. It was seeking help. And this dog came to me. I picked the dog up and I noticed it only had one leg or two legs missing on one side and a missing eye. And I remember it had a number on it, and I called the owner and I said, "Are you missing this dog?" And the owner said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I have this dog." And the dog was like, it was so happy that it found me. And this dog was hiding. It was hiding under the blanket. It was ashamed, this dog. And but it was a puppy. It was a puppy. And so I'm still getting more information on that dream, and I'm waiting for him to confirm the rest. But as I'm reading this, I'm just thinking about this. He says, if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. For it is profitable for you to enter into life lame than having 2 feet and being thrown into hell, into the unquenchable fire, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. He says, if your eye causes you to sin, cast it out, for it is better for you to enter into the kingdom of Yah with one eye than having 2 eyes and being thrown in the fire of Gehenna. So whatever it is, if you're sinning with your hands, let's say you're masturbating, if it's your eyes that you're sinning, you're watching pornography, you're watching, things that's sinful. You're lusting after people, you're lusting after a woman and she's married, all of these kinds of things. He says it's better, the whole gist is it's better for you to get rid of whatever it is that's causing you to sin. It's better for you to cut that off than to go into hell with 2 eyes. You better off you going in with one. If it's your foot, meaning because we use our feet to walk, because it's things that you're doing in your life, it's better for you to cut it off and to go enter into everlasting life lame than having 2 feet and being thrown into hell. Okay. He says, verse 48, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. For everyone will be salted with fire. Let me say this again. For everyone will be salted with fire, and every sacrifice will be seasoned with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt should become bland, with what will it be seasoned? Have salt in yourselves. Let me say this again. Have salt in yourselves and be in harmony among each other. So we must have salt in ourselves. When we talk about salt versus sugar, salt does not burn in the fire, but sugar will immediately melt in the fire. I want you to think about that, because salt and sugar, when fine, when very fine, look the same. Okay? Salt does not burn in the fire, but sugar will immediately melt. Salt will withstand the fire. Think about that. When you have, if you're seasoned with salt, if you have salt in you, salt will withstand the fire. Okay? And so when I think about salt, like nobody wants to put meat, have meat and cook meat. And I'm roasting or I'm baking my meat, I don't want to put my meat in there without seasoning. I have all kinds of different seasonings because it makes it taste better. My son, if he has his, rice, he wants salt on his rice. It just makes your food taste better. Salt has flavor. It adds spice. It preserves and makes everything better. Okay. So because it's used for preservations, it represents permanence. It represents permanence. It represents steadiness. And so it's not a coincidence that we're called to be the salt of the earth. Because if you're not salted, that means you cannot withstand the fire. You will not. It's almost as if you're of no use to the kingdom. Okay, and this is coming from our master. This is coming from our master, YAHUSHA MESSIAH. And so let's talk about self-control. Let's talk about self-control. I always like to use examples, and I did this. I think I did this. Yeah, I did do this last Shabbat. I put up different pictures to kind of give you some scenarios on what it looked like to, what did I talk about last week? Faithfulness look like. So this week I want to do self-control. So I want to present you with some scenarios to show self-control, temperance. Okay. And I really don't think once you see all these examples, we don't need much explanation after this. Okay. Let's talk about practicing self-restraint. When we're practicing self-restraint, we're in charge of our emotions. We're in charge of our impulses. We're in charge of our desires. Okay. It's when you practice self-control and temperance, it's the ability to govern your own internal desires. So let's talk about this first picture here. First picture we see, and I'm talking about just from having self-control, even from the smallest, the little ones, our children. Maybe the parent told them you cannot have cookies until after dinner, but the parent is not putting the cookies up. The parent is leaving it on the table. Okay, on the counter in the kitchen. And that child has to practice self-control. They have to govern their own internal desires and make the right judgment. Okay. What about a man who's married and he's on the internet and he's watching pornography? He's watching, naked women, those types of things. You have to practice self-control. Same thing. If you're a teenager and you're in high school, someone's trying to get you to smoke cigarettes, you have to practice self-control, self-constraint. If you're a husband and you're in a marriage, you might have Becky or someone come along and, tell you, oh, now you're in middle age. Now she's telling you how great you look. She's pumping you up. You're receiving all of her words. Next thing you know, you find yourself in some type of situation and you slept with her. It takes self-control to be married and to honor the covenant. It takes discipline. Okay. If you are not married, to not fornicate. He's going to woo you. He's going to try to engage you in activity that you should not be engaging in until you're married. So you have to practice self-control, self-discipline in order to be able to, well, it's self-restraint. We talked about that. A person who practices self-control is able to make sound judgments. They're able to refrain from giving in to their unwise decisions. Okay? Self-discipline and self-restraint. They're able to be in control of their mind, their thoughts. Their mind and their thoughts don't master them. Okay? They don't control them. They're not controlled by their passions and their instincts. What did David pray? David prayed, do not allow sin to have dominion over me. I don't want sin, my flesh, to rule over me. We're not brute beasts. We're not like animals that are incapable of controlling ourselves. We can control ourselves. And so if indeed Yahusha is master of our heart, then sin should still have no place in us. We should not be practicing sin. If he is truly our master, if he is truly ruling in our hearts, then we are no longer walking according to the works of the flesh, but according to the fruits of the Spirit as laid out in Galatians 5. And so the purpose of the law, of the Torah, because it was created for those who are disobedient, is to restrain us. It's to protect us from ourselves. It is to protect us from ourselves. But if we walk in the fruit of the Spirit, those who walk according to the Spirit, they walk in freedom. They walk in freedom. This is why I always pray that he places desires in my heart, because I tell him all the time, please do not. I tell you, I pray this all the time. I've been praying this for years. Please do not let me mess it up. I do not, Father Yah, I don't know what's best for me. I do not know what's best for me. You created me. You lead me. You guide me. Give me your desires. That's what I've been praying now more than ever. You give me your desires. Give me your desires, because I don't know what's best for me. I don't. And so when we talk about amunah, faith, 2 Timothy 1:7 says, Yah did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and when it says a sound mind, this literally is self-control. When you look it up in context, he did not give us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and self-control. Okay, we were born and brought in this world in the beginning with temperance, self-control. When we look this up in context, it says moderation. It says a calling to soundness of mind, to moderation and self-control. It's moderation, being disciplined, having a sound mind. Moderation. We think about, they always want to attribute being modest to a woman, as if a man could be sitting up on social media with oil all on his chest and showing off his muscles and wearing tight pants, showing the bulges. And, this moderation is not just outward. Moderation is self-control. So let's clear that up right now. As you just saw, it is self-control. Being able to govern your emotions, your instincts, your passions, your desires, is having a sound mind. Moderation, according to the ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible, it means to be straight. It means to be righteous. One who is upright or righteous is one who walks a straight path. That's what it means to be moderate, to walk the straight path, to have self-control, to fear Yah and to turn away from evil. And so, in the beginning, the opportunity to exercise the fruit of self-control happened in Genesis. Go figure. Okay? The opportunity to exercise self-control began in the beginning with our forefathers, Adam and Eve. So let's go to the command. What did the Father Yah tell Adam and Eve? Okay, we're in Genesis chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. And Yah Almighty took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. And Yah Almighty commanded the man, saying, eating, you may eat of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you may not eat. What did he say? You may eat of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Let me say it again. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he said, you may not eat. So they were told that they could not eat from this tree. He said, because in the day that you eat of it, surely you shall die. And that is what happened. They died 7 years short of the 1,000 years, because in scripture it tells you that a day is as 1,000 years to the Father Yah. And they died, I think it was 7 years short of that 1,000 years. So they did die in that day. Okay, oftentimes in scripture, when they speak of a day, it might not be speaking of a 24-hour period. Like when it speaks of the day of Yah, it is a time. It's a period of time, not necessarily 24 hours, but a period of time. Okay, he says, in the day that you eat of it, surely you shall die. So we know what the command was. But did they practice self-control? Here is the test. The Father Yah did not remove that tree. He didn't remove it. They had a choice. He told the Yasharites, I set before you good and evil, life and good, life and death. Choose this day who you will serve. That choice still remains. He told Yasharel, he said, look, I'm no longer going to remove these nations from you anymore. He said, I'm going to leave him here to test you, to see if you will obey. Adam and Eve. The Father Yah is not trying to force anybody. If you don't want salvation, if you want to be in the unquenchable fire that cannot be put out, the Father Yah does no wrong. We learned this last Shabbat. He does everything right. He is perfect. And anyone that ends up there, it is a righteous and a just decision. We, right now, by the choices that we make, our ability to practice self-control will determine where we spend our final eternity. Okay? Death is not the final answer. It's not our final resting place. The soul goes to a place. Only you decide where it goes. Our forefathers, our foreparents, Adam and Eve, were told, you can eat of any of the trees in the garden, but of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, do not eat from it. Don't touch it. If you do, you're going to die. He told them, you are going to die in the day that you touch it. So they gave the command. What was the test? So now I'm reading Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And the serpent was cunning above every beast of the field which Yah Almighty had made. And he said to the woman, is it so that Yah has told you, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, of the trees of the garden we may eat. He says, of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. But of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, Yah has said, you shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, unless you die. So we see right here, what the two trees that were in the garden were laid out as we read in Galatians 5, the works of the flesh. The knowledge of good and evil was the fruit that was on that tree was the works of the flesh. Adultery, idolatry, enmity, hatred, and everything that is not of the Father. That was the tree. That was the tree, the works of the flesh. That's what the knowledge of good and evil represents. That was the fruit that was on that tree, the works of the flesh. And we see this playing out in real time right now. We see the people right now, majority of the earth is eating still from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They're still taking from the works of the flesh. We see it right now, acting itself out, the fruit, bearing itself out and it's increasing all throughout the earth. The tree of life, that tree was there. That fruit bore the fruits of the Spirit. That was going to allow them to be fruitful, to continue being like the Father Yah, to continue abiding Him, to multiply, to continue in me, continue being like me, and abide. They instead, they listen to the serpent. So here's the test. The Father Yah already told them, don't touch that. With that fruit yields death. The works of the flesh yields death and sin. No flesh will enter into the kingdom of the Father. Okay? The wages of sin is death. So that's why He said today that if you eat of this fruit, you eat of the works of the flesh, you're going to die. Okay? And verse 4, and the serpent said to the woman, surely you shall not die. You shall not die. For Yah knows that in the day you eat of it, even your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as Yah. You're going to be a God just like Him, knowing good and evil. Our people, and there are many in this awakening that's teaching this, you are going to be a God. We're not going to be Yah. We're like Him. We will share His glory if you are a child of the Father, because if you are a child, you are an heir. If you're an heir, you have authority. You have an inheritance, and you will be like Him. We will share in His glory. We will be in our glorified bodies, but we're not Yah. We're not Him, but we will look like Him again. We will be in His likeness and His image again. And He ended up, just as we as parents share their glory, they share their inheritance with their children, but the children are not their parents, but they share. The parents, you share what you have with your children. But we're not going to be gods we're not like Him. Your eyes will be open. When people are messing around now with that new age and the chakra and the third eye, their eyes are open. You know why? Because they're taken from that tree that the Father Yah told them not to touch. Yeah, they know certain things. Yes, they surely do. Oh, I'm so deep. Yeah, you are deep. Deep in hell. 1 foot in the grave. So we have to be careful of what tree we're eating from, because it means something. It means something. So they failed the test. They failed the test. Verse 6, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes. Remember, this is the same thing. This is the same thing. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. You see that? F-E-L. F, flesh. Lust of the flesh, F. Lust of the eyes, E. And this is what the Ruach showed me. And the pride of life. They fail. F-E-L. This is the beginning where the kingdom fell. The woman saw that the food was good for food. How is something good when the Father told you that it wasn't good? Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. She saw that it was pleasant to the eyes, lusting, coveting something that was not lawful for her to have, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise. They were already wise. They were already clothed with the righteousness of Yah. They were naked, but they were not ashamed because they were clothed with the righteousness of Yah. And so she took of its fruit, which represents the work of the flesh. And what happened? She ate. She took of his fruit and she ate. Here is the beginning. The choice was laid before them. This is where no restraint first began in Scripture, right here. Genesis 3 and 6. She was unable to govern her desires. The tree was desirable to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate. She practiced no restraint. And not only that, she caused her husband to sin as well. She gave it to him. And she gave it to her husband with her. And did he practice? Did he walk in his headship? No, he did not. And she gave it to him. And what did he do? He didn't say, no, we're not supposed to eat this. He didn't say, no, the Father Yah told us that in the day that we eat of this, we're going to die. He ate it. Eve was deceived. Adam was not. He was being disobedient. And it says the eyes of both of them were open and they knew that they were naked. They didn't know that they were naked before, because the scriptures tells us that they were naked and they were not ashamed. In Genesis chapter 2, the last verse tells us that they were naked. Adam and Eve, the man and the woman, were naked and they were not ashamed. Those who are in Yahusha, there is no shame. There is no condemnation to those who are in him. So the moment that they took from this tree of knowledge of good and evil, which represents the work of the flesh, their eyes were open, as Satan told them it would be. Now they knew they were naked. This means they were guilty. They were exposed. Their shame was on them. And because they were ashamed, because they were guilty, because they now have experienced something that the Father Yah never intended, they experienced sin, disobedience. They're in the flesh now. They began to sow leaves of the fig tree and they made girdles for themselves. So now they're afraid. Didn't we learn that Yah said that I did not give you a spirit of fear? But now they're afraid. Now they have a spirit on them that the Father Yah did not give them. Power, love, and a sound mind, meaning self-control. That's what he gave them. They had temperance and self-control, but they had the opportunity. They chose self-will over self-control. And now we are seeing the fruits of it. We're seeing the fruits of it right now. We're in a fallen state. Man is in a fallen nature, in a fallen world. And the Father Yah is doing everything that he can without forcing us, but he's laying before us once again the choice, the final opportunity to choose again this day whom we will serve. So let's talk about self-control in ministry. 1 Timothy 3, verses 2 and 3 says, therefore, an overseer, pastor, must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, not having 10 wives, like they want to do in this awakening. You want to be an overseer of a congregation, but you want to have 2 and 3 and 4 wives. What does the scripture say? He says that you must be above reproach. You have to have a good reputation. You can't have a reputation of being a pastor that's sleeping with people throughout the congregation or not living a life that is set apart. You must be the husband of one wife. You must be sober-minded, make sound, righteous judgment, and have self-control. You must practice self-control, self-restraint. You must be respectable, hospitable, and you must be able to teach. Not given to drunkenness. Nobody should see the pastor at the bar drunk, staggering out the bar. You should not be violent. We should not look you up and see a mug shot. but gentle, quarrelsome, not quarrelsome, if you're argumentative, and if you love money, like Creflo Dollar, TD Jakes, all these, he says, because if you love money, it's the love of money. Money is not unlawful, it's the love of money. See, many of the pastors love money so much that they're only concerned about that. They're not concerned about feeding the sheep with a set apart word that will transform their lives. They don't preach on repentance. They don't preach the crucifixion of the Mashiach. They don't preach the good news. They don't preach to turn away from sin. They're not preaching to keep yourself untainted and unspotted from the world. They're actually ushering in and leading people into the world. Many of the pastors are leading people into the entertainment industry. You see so many artists doing songs with secular artists. The secular artists, they're doing songs with their half dressed, half nude. They're singing lyrics that dishonor the Father, that lead people to hell. And yet they're going to do a song with them. One of the Clark sisters was, oh, I'm so overjoyed that Jay-Z and Beyonce has chosen my song. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about. No self-control. The love of money, because she Twinkie, I think it's Twinkie Clark. She's thinking about all the money she's getting ready to get because they're using her song. She's not thinking about that these are two witches that are literally leading the world astray. And I didn't say America, I said the world. The world. She has so many people under her spell, Beyonce, that it's not even funny. So many so-called believers that are in the church are under her spell, under her power. She's wearing a sequence a hat. Now everybody going to their concerts and they got on the shiny hats. Parents, mothers going to these concerts, taking their daughters to Beyonce's concert while she's half dressed, singing sexually explicit lyrics, things that exposing your child to lewdness. And where are the parents who are going to parent and train their children up in a way? Yeah, many of these parents that took their daughters to this Beyonce concert and have never sat down with their daughter to read the word. Your daughter doesn't know how to pray, but she knows how to sing Beyonce Lemonade song, doesn't she? Self-control in our lives. Titus 2, verses 11 and 12. It says, for the grace of Yah that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us to renounce ungodliness. Do you see this? Teaching us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions and to live a self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age. As I was coming in the door the other day, I think it was a couple of days ago, and all I was just hearing is that if we do not practice self-control, you're not going to be able to. If you do, I was putting the key in the door, and I was hearing, if there is no self-control, If you can't remain set apart from the world, from its influences, there is no way you're going to see the kingdom. There is no way. He has brought salvation to us. Yahusha has appeared to all men, verse 11. And he taught us to renounce ungodliness, to renounce it, to renounce worldly passions, to resist it, to have self-restraint, to live a self-controlled life, upright, living Yahweh lives in this present age. We should be standing out. We have to resist ungodliness, unrighteous living. So now we're going to go into the epistles of Paul. And this is so perfect with this because he speaks in Romans all about struggling with sin. And so I hope that this will be able to clear up a lot. We're going to begin with 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 10. Peter is speaking. Yahusha has given us all things that pertain to the power of Yah for life and worship of Yah through the full knowledge of the one calling us through glory and virtue, by which means he has given to us the very great and precious promises, so that through these you might be partakers of the sacred nature. So that sacred nature, which many people call the divine nature, that sacred nature is a nature that our forefathers had. It doesn't mean, but people, that's what people confuse about, oh, we are gods. When it's talking about that, it's talking about being partakers of that sacred nature because we're just like him. A lion is just like a lion. A cat is just like a cat, its mother. So if we were created just like him, his likeness, we are his children. We're going to partake that sacred nature that he had, escaping from the corruption of this flesh, which is in the world by lust. We saw this with Eve. But also in this very thing, having brought in all diligence, having fully supplied in your faith, virtue, and with virtue, knowledge. And with knowledge comes self-control. And with self-control comes patience. And with patience, holiness. And with holiness, brotherly kindness. And with brotherly kindness, love. For these things being in you and abounding, they will keep you from being useless or unfruitful in the full knowledge of our Master, YAHUSHA MESSIAH. Therefore, brothers, rather be diligent to make your calling and election sure. So we've been told to be diligent, to make your calling and your election sure. If you're calling yourself the elect, make it sure. Put a seal on it. Be diligent. That means with all your heart, soul, and mind, make the calling. He has called you. Many are called, but few are chosen. If you want to be elected, you have to make it sure. For doing these things, he says, if you do these things, if you practice in self-control, these virtues, you will never fall like our forefathers Adam and Eve did. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 through 12. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 says, but Yah knows to rescue the righteous out of temptation and to keep the unjust to be punished at the judgment day. And especially will he punish those who follow after the filthy lusts of the flesh and have no respect for authority. They're self-willed, okay? That means they practice no self-control. They're arrogant. They don't tremble when they blaspheme. But these men, like dumb beasts, which by nature offer slaughter and destruction, speak evil of the things that they do not understand and will utterly perish in their own corruption, being about to receive the wages of unrighteousness, which is death, as they consider it a delightful thing to revel in this time. And so they think that it's a delightful thing to revel in the daytime. They think that this is a delightful thing. 2 Peter, still 2 Peter chapter 2, I'm reading verses 9 through 22, verse 13. He says that they are spots and blemishes among you and sport themselves with their own pleasures, feasting along with you in idleness. So he said that these people, they're spots, they're blemishes. Okay, someone who lives a life of no restraint, they have a lack of self-control. He says they are spots and blemishes among you. He said they sport themselves with their own pleasures, feasting among you in idleness. Verse 14, having eyes full of adultery, never ceasing from sin. See, a person that never ceases from sin, they have no self-control. They do not govern their impulses, their desires, their passions, their instincts, whatever they feel, they do it. They have self-indulgent, and there's no end. The flesh is never satisfied. So they go from one thing to the next. They never cease from sinning, seducing unsteady souls. So only people that they seduce are those who are unsteady. If you're unsteady, that has to do with your faith. Okay. Having a heart being filled with covetousness. Okay. They are cursed children. Did you see this? They are cursed children who have forsaken the straight path and have gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor. These are springs without water, clouds being driven by a storm, for whom the blackness of darkness has been kept forever. For they mouth empty, boastful words, and by appealing to the lustful desires of the flesh, they entice people who are just escaping from those who live in error. So they entice people who are just escaping. So a lot of people are coming to this awakening, and then they go to these camps, okay? And a lot of them, filled with these lustly, fleshly desire. Okay, you're going to be my 10th wife. Okay. They entice silly women. They entice people with, Joseph is the father. Yahusha is not the son of Yah. You know that, right? Because, it said to David. Oh, really? Okay. They entice people who are just escaping those who have been living in error. That maybe they've been in a church where they're teaching false doctrine, and they come into this awakening. These are the ones that they seduce. There are spots and blemishes. Verse 19, they promise freedom. Okay, they're promising you freedom. He says, but they themselves are slaves of sin and corruption. He says, for you are a slave to whatever controls you. So whatever it is that controls you in your life, whatever it is, you are a slave to it. If indeed they have escaped the corruption of the world through the knowledge of our Master and Savior, YAHUSHA MESSIAH, only to be entangled and overcome by it again. Their final condition is worse than it was at first. He says, for it is better for them to have not known the ways of righteousness than having recognized it and having recognized it, to turn from the holy commandment that was delivered. So there have been people who have come into the truth of who the Father and the Son is, okay? And he has revealed his truth to them. He has revealed himself. They were excited about this truth, but because the seed fell on soil that choked out the truth, they turn away from the holy command that was delivered to them to turn to a lie. Now the condition of that person is worse than before, verse 22. But the word of the true proverb has happened to them. The dog returns to his own vomit. And also the soul that was washed is now wallowing again in the mud. So they are going back. Oftentimes when you come out of something and you return back, the stronghold on your life, that thing which controls you now, is going to have more strength and more power over you than it initially did. Romans chapter 5, verses 12, verses 14 and 15, verse 17. So now we're getting into the epistles of Shaul, Paul. Even as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, so also death passed to all men, inasmuch as all have sinned. Yet death reigned from Adam until Moses, even over those who had not sinned after the likeness of the transgression of the Torah by Adam. So we had not sinned, but because death and sin reigned through Adam until Moses, it passed to us, who and Moses was a type of him, meaning Yahusha, who was to come. But the free gift is not also like the offense. For if by the offense of the one, the many died, how much more the grace of the gift of Yah? So we all died through Adam, but through Yahusha, the gift of grace and salvation, we shall live, we shall increase, we shall be fruitful and multiply again. Verse 17, for if by the offense of one death reigned through the one, how much more those who are receiving the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness, how shall that rule in life by the one Yahushua Messiah? We're reading Romans chapter 6, verses 11 through 23. So also you count yourselves to be truly dead to sin, but alive to Yah and Yahushua Messiah, our master. He says, then do not let sin reign. If you truly say you have been dead, if you're dead to sin, don't let sin reign. Don't allow sin to have dominion over you. Okay, to obey its lust. Neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin. Don't use your body as an instrument of unrighteousness to sin. He says, but present yourselves to Yah as who having been brought from death to life, and offer every part of yourself to him as an instrument of righteousness. Do you not know that when you offer yourselves as obedient slaves, you are slaves to the one you obey, whether you are slaves to sin leading to death or to obedience leading to righteousness? So our body is not our own. We were bought with a price. And so if we deny that and we offer our bodies to obey the flesh, you are a slave to whomever it is that you obey. And that's what we need to understand. Whether you're going to be a slave to sin, which is going to eventually lead to death because the wages of sin is death, or obedience leading to righteousness. Verse 17, but thanks be to Yah that though you were slaves of sin, you became obedient from the heart to that form of teaching to which you were given. And having been set free from sin, you were enslaved to righteousness because of the weakness of your human nature. I am using the illustration of slavery to help you to understand it. So he's using, everyone can understand slavery. So he's using this illustration of slavery to help us to understand that if anything, whoever it is you obey or whatever it is you obey, that is what you are a slave to. He says, previously, you let yourselves be slaves to impurity and lawlessness, which led ever deeper into sin. Now you must give yourselves to be slaves to righteous living so that you will become holy. So we're going to be a slave to anything right now. We should be slaves to living righteousness, slaves to becoming holy. He says, for when you were slaves of sin, you were free from righteousness. Therefore, what fruit did you have then in the things over which you are now ashamed? So when I think back over my life, when I think back over the things that I did in the past, I'm ashamed of those things. And it did not bring fruit of righteousness to my life. He says, for the end of those things is death. Verse 22, but now having been set free from sin and having been enslaved to Yah, you have your fruit of sanctification. Okay, we are being saved. And the more and more we grow in the fruit of the Spirit, the more and more we look like him. So it says, but now having been set free from sin and having been enslaved to Yah, you have your fruit of sanctification, and the end, everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Yah is everlasting life in Yahushua Messiah, our master. And so now Paul is going to be dealing with the mind as we talk about struggling with sin. So we're going to Romans chapter 7, verses 5 through 10, and then we're going to read verses 14 through 25. For when we were in the flesh, the passions of sin were working in our members through the law for the bearing of fruit unto death. But we have been set free from the penalty of the law. So when you read your King James Version, it says we've been set free from the law. You have to understand, and that's why many people twist Paul to their own destruction, because they don't understand what he's saying. He's not talking about the law of Yah, the Torah, the teachings and the instructions. And he's gonna reveal what law he's talking about. But we have been set free, not from the Torah itself, but from the penalty of the law. The penalty are the judgments that come against you for not keeping it, for not obeying it. Okay, so let me read verse 6 again. But now we have been set free from the penalty of the law, having died to that in which we were held. So as for us to serve in the newness of spirit and not in the oldness of the letter. For what shall we say then? Is the law sin? Let it not be. But I did not know sin except through the Torah. For also I did not know lust except for the Torah, or the law said, you shall not lust. So when he talks about we're not serving in the spirit and not the oldness of the letter, you cannot serve just by, see, the Pharisees knew the law, but they didn't have the Ruach. They didn't have the spirit. They didn't have the fruits of the spirit. And so he says, is the law sin? He said, let it not be. Of course not. He said, I would not have known what sin was except the law, through the law. He said, it is through the law that I knew that I should not be lusting. Verse 8, but sin taking occasion through the commandment work every lust in me. He says, for apart from the law, sin is dead. So if there's no law, there's no sin. So when people say the law is done away with, they don't know what law is being done away with, and we're going to see in a moment. He said he would not have known what sin was unless it was for the law. Okay, his teachings and his instructions. Okay, because if there is no law, if there's no teachings and instructions, then what is he going to be judging us? What books will he open in the end to judge us out of? He has to have a standard, right? Would that be a fair and just and righteous almighty power to send someone to hell? And someone said, well, you said the law was done away with, so that means that doesn't make any sense. And so we're going to clear this up today so that you can understand, Paul. For apart from the law, sin is dead. For I was alive apart from the Torah once, but the commandments came and sin came alive, and then I died. So apart from the God's teaching and instructions, there is no such thing as sin. Sin is a lie. Okay, but the moment that his teachings and instructions came, his commandments came, now you know what you have to do. Before Adam and Eve, when they were told, do not touch the tree of knowledge of good and evil, at that very moment that they touched it, sin became alive and they died. They died. And so if I have a son, if I have a rule, no jumping on the bed, and he jumps on the bed, then I can punish him for that if I choose to discipline him if he does that. But can I, if he's jumping on the bed and I didn't have a rule and he didn't know anything about it, would I be a just parent? Would that be fair for me to judge him for something that I've never taught him? In school, as teachers, we spend the first 2 weeks to a month going over rules and policies and procedures, letting the children know what our expectations are, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. What's acceptable in my classroom might not be acceptable in another teacher classroom, and vice versa. And so you have to let the children know what your expectations are and what the rules are, what the teachings and instructions are, so that they can know what it is that they have to follow, so that they know the standards and the expectations that they must live up to. Same thing with us. He's given us his commands. He's given us his teachings and his instructions, the 10 words. And so Paul's saying, apart from that, apart from the Torah, he was alive. But when Yah gave the commandments, that's when sin came alive and then he died. He says in verse 10, and the commandment which was life to me, it was found to be death to me. Okay? Because now there are standards. Verse 14, for when we know that the Torah is spiritual, for I am fleshly, having been sold under sin. We were sold under sin to our forefathers, our foreparents, Adam and Eve. We were sold under sin. He says, I do not understand what I do. He says, now this is not, to pay attention, because he's getting ready to tell you, you're getting ready to see the struggle with sin, the struggle with being disciplined. He says, for what I want to do, in verse 15, Paul said, I do not do. He said, I want to do what's right, but I'm not doing what's right. That's not what I do. Are you looking at this? What? He says, but what I hate, that's what I do. What I hate is what I do. Have you ever done something, you just had this desire to do something and you knew it was wrong and you know what to do, but you don't? He said, that's when it's sin. When you know what to do, when you don't do it, it's sin. You end up doing that which you hate. Paul is talking about the struggle to practice self-control here. Verse 16, he says, but if I do what I do not want, I agree with the law that it is good. Now then, it is not I who do it. He says, but the sin which dominates in me. He said, it's the sin that has dominion over me that's causing me to do the very thing that I hate to do, but I don't have any control to do what's right. Verse 18, for I know that nothing good dwells in me. That is, he means in my flesh. Nothing good dwells in your flesh. He says, for the desire to do what is good is with me. I have the desire to do what is good. He says, but to do it, he said, is difficult. So in this passage, you're seeing him struggle with sin. Verse 19, for it is not the good that I desire to do, that I do. He says, but it is the evil that I do not desire to do that I do. He said, I don't want to do these evil things. I don't want to commit lust. I don't want to commit fornication. But these desires that rise up in me, and I'm getting these feelings and these desires, and she looks good or he looks good, and now I'm caught in this web of sin. Verse 20, he says, but if I do what I do not desire, then it is no longer I who do it. He says, but it's the sin that dominates me. This is the reason why David said, do not allow sin to have dominion over me. Verse 21, he said, I find therefore that the Torah agrees with my conscience. When I desire to do good, he said, but evil is always near distracting me. Do you see this? Verse 21, he said he desires to do good. The Torah, the teachings and instructions agree with him. He said, I desire to do good. I desire to do what is right. He said, but evil is always near distracting me. When you think about the world right now in social media, you think about what's going on in the world. Everywhere you look, evil is very near to all of us, trying to distract us away, trying to turn us away from walking right and doing what is right. Verse 22, he says, for I delight in the Torah of Yah according to the inward man. Now let's pay attention to verse 23. Verse 23, he says, but I see another law, having warred against the law of my mind and taking me captive by the law of sin being in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this mortal body? So the pastors don't talk about this. We're reading Romans chapter 7, verse 23. Paul is speaking in this chapter about his struggle with sin, his struggle with practicing self-control, desiring to want to do good, but evil always being there, trying to distract them to do the wrong thing. So when he's talking about the law, when people talk about the law done away, Paul is telling you right here, he said, I see another law. Now he's not talking about the law of Yah in verse 23. He's not talking about the teachings and the instructions in verse 23. He's talking about another law. I see another law, having warred against the law of my mind, taking me captive by the law of sin. He's talking about the law of sin and death that is in our members, in our body, in this fleshly body. This is why he says in verse 24, oh, wretched man that I am, who can deliver me from this mortal body? Who can deliver me from this fleshly body? because the flesh is enmity against the spirit. The flesh is the covenant, is the law that is in us, the embedded covenant, the flesh. It is a covenant that our foreparents, Adam and Eve, agreed to. That is the covenant that's embedded in us. And it is a daily fight. We have to die to the flesh daily. Keep killing it because it is a law. Okay. And the flesh wants to die. The flesh wants to go to hell. The flesh wants to sin. The flesh wants to fulfill every lustful desire that's in you. That's why you have this struggle with sin. You wouldn't struggle with sin if the law of flesh was not there. It is a law. It's a covenant. Okay. So Paul, and why is it that the pastors don't talk about this? The pastors do not talk about there's two laws that Paul is speaking of. He said, I see another law that's warring against the law of my mind, taking me captive by the law of sin being in my members. Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this mortal body? Verse 25, I thank Yah through YAHUSHA MESSIAH, our master. So then I myself, with the mind, he said, I serve, because the mind is the heart. And as a man is in his heart and in his mind, so is he. Paul says, in my mind, truly, he said, I serve the Torah of Yah. I serve the teachings and instructions, the law of Yah. But he says, with the flesh, I serve the law of sin. This is what he's talking about. We have been set free from, when he says we've been set free from the law, we've been set free. Yahusha didn't set us free from his teachings and his instruction. He tell you in Matthew 5:17-19, think not that I came to do away with the law. I didn't come to do away with it, but I came to fulfill it. Fulfill does not mean to make void, to do away with. It means to do it, to enforce it. Do you see that? To serve it, to live up to the standards as laid out to it. When he says, think not that I came to do away with it, the Messiah said, don't even put that in your mind. Don't even put that in your heart. Don't even think for a second that I came to do away with it. I didn't come to do away with it. I came to fulfill it. I came to do it, to increase it, to fulfill it, to do it, to enforce it even more. Yahusha came to set us free from the law of sin and death, not the Torah. That's why Paul is telling you here in Romans 7:23 about the two laws. The law of the flesh, that embedded covenant, or the law of Yah, his 10 words, his commands. Now we're going to read Romans chapter 8, verses 1-16. And it's going to tell you what law Yahusha, our Messiah, set us free from. Romans 8, verse 1 says, there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Yahusha Messiah, who do not walk according to the flesh. If we're not walking according to the flesh, but we're walking according to the spirit, the Ruach, there's no condemnation. He says, for the law of the spirit of life, which is in Yahusha Messiah, has set me free from what law? From the law of sin and death. Boom, right there. Romans chapter 8, verse 2 tells you that our Messiah, when it says he set me free from the law, what law? Take them to Romans 7 and read Romans chapter 7 and take them to verse 23, where it says that Paul is talking about two different laws. What law did our Messiah set us free from? He set us free, according to Romans 8:2, from the law of sin and death. From that law of the flesh, that embedded covenant that was passed down to us from Adam and Eve. He says, for the law being powerless in that it was weak through the flesh. The law, his Torah, is weak from, we cannot serve the Father Yah from the flesh. The flesh, I told you, is enmity to the spirit. It's not going to obey. Yah sending his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh, even though he did not sin, concerning sin, He condemned sin in the flesh so that the righteous demand of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, those not walking according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So that's how we're able to fulfill and to walk out and to live out the righteous demands of the Torah, the law, the teachings and instructions. There are righteous demands that we have been called to walk out. But we can't walk it out according to the flesh. Look at it. We have to walk it out according to the Spirit. Look at verse 4. Verse 5, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. To be carnally minded is to be death, is to death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So we should be setting our things on the things that are of the Spirit, of the Ruach, not setting our things that are on the flesh, because the flesh represents the carnal mind. The carnal mind is death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Verse 7, because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Yah. Let me say this again, verse 7. Romans 8, verse 7 says the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Yah. That means it is mutual hostility. Okay? For it is not subject to the Torah of Yah. It's not subject. It does not have to yield and submit to Yah. For why? Because it's impossible. Look, are you looking at it? It is not possible for the flesh to submit to the Torah. The flesh will never submit to the teachings and instructions of Yah. The Torah will never submit to walking and living out a righteous, upright life, holy living. It won't do it. You can't do it in the flesh. You have to have the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, in order to be able to do it. Verse 8, and those who are in the flesh, what does he say? You are not able to please Yah. Verse 9, but you are not controlled by the flesh. Let me say this again. You are not controlled by the flesh. Let me say this again. Those of you who have the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, you are not controlled by the flesh. If you practice self-control, if you are truly indeed in YAHUSHA MESSIAH, he is in you, you are not controlled by the flesh, even though we are in this fleshly body. The flesh does not have master over us. The flesh does not rule us. Our flesh should not control you. A person who's ruled by the flesh, whatever they want to do, they do it. They have no restraint. They don't hold back on anything. Whatever they want to say, they pop off at the mouth. They don't care what they say. They use no discretion. They don't have any tact. Just whatever I say, I'm just going to say it. Whatever I feel like doing, I'm going to do it. Do what thou wilt. That's a person who does not have self-control, and they're being controlled by their flesh, not by the Spirit. He says, if the Spirit of Yah lives in you, and the question is if the Spirit of Yah lives in you, if you have his set apart spirit, if you have the Holy Spirit, okay? If anyone does not have the Spirit of the Messiah, he does not belong to. That's it. If you don't have the Spirit of the Messiah, you don't belong to him. If you don't have his Holy Spirit, you don't belong to him. Verse 12. So then, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh. We owe this fleshly body nothing. We are not in debt to this flesh, because if you are in the Spirit, you are no longer in covenant with the flesh, because you are being sanctified day by day, being made holy and holier day by day. And you're being made more and more like him, and you are being saved. So if he says, if we are debtors, but we're not debtors to the flesh, and we don't live, he says in verse 12, according to the flesh. We don't walk. If those who are in YAHUSHA MESSIAH, those who follow him, those who truly love the Father Yah and his Son YAHUSHA, they do not live their life according to the flesh. Everything they want to do, they do it. Everything they want to watch, they watch it. Everything they want to hear, they listen to it. Everything they want to say, they say it. No. He says, but if you live according to the flesh, what did he say? Verse 13, you are going to die. He's repeating the same thing that the Father Yah told to Adam and Eve. If you touch this tree of knowledge of good and evil, if you touch it, you are going to die. In the day that you do, you're going to die. That tree of knowledge of good and evil was the works of the flesh. You know what? They touched the flesh, and that's why they became just like it. That's why they became just like it. That's why we're in this fleshly body now, because it's a covenant. And this fleshly body is a reminder to us every day you look in the mirror that we're in this fleshly body, that this is the covenant, and we're in a prison and we're trying to get out. That's why Paul said, who's going to deliver me from this fleshly body? I want to get out of here, he's saying. He says, but if you live according to the flesh, in verse 13, you are going to die. You are going to die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the practices of the body, he says you will live. Now I want to get hiccups. But if you live by the Spirit, and if you're growing in the fruits of the Spirit, and you put to death the practices of the body, put to death the fleshly things of the body, the lust of the flesh, the things that you did in the past that you were once ashamed of, like fornicating, committing adultery, lying and stealing and coveting and hatred and envy and jealousy, all of those things. If you put to death those practices, he says you will live. For as many that are led by the Spirit of Yah, these are the sons of Yah. So this is how you know that someone is truly a son or a daughter. If you are a son or a daughter of Yah, you are a child. If you're a child of Yah, you are an heir. If you are an heir, that means you have inheritance and you have authority. And so those who are being led by the Spirit of Yah, when you see the fruits of the Spirit in them, as we've been going over all of these fruits, start looking at the people around you. Start looking at you yourself. If you're seeing these fruits and it growing, then you know that they're being led by the Spirit of Yah. Don't go by just because somebody said, oh God, oh I love God, or they wearing a pendant that say JC on it, or they look like they're holy outwardly. Test the spirit to see if it be of Yah. A fruit, a fruit, he says, a tree by the fruit that it bears. Okay. Good fruit cannot come from a wicked tree, and vice versa. So as many that are led by the Spirit of Yah, these are the sons of Yah. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery again to fear. What did he say? You did not receive a spirit of slavery again to fear. Who did that? That was Adam and Eve. It's the moment they took from that tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is symbolic of the works of the flesh, they were ashamed. Remember, they were naked before, and they weren't ashamed. The moment they took from the works of the flesh, which is a tree of knowledge of good and evil, now they're ashamed. Now they're hiding. Now they're afraid. They're fear. They were afraid of everything. When you go back and read the book of Adam and Eve, they were afraid of the darkness. They was afraid of everything. Did Yah give them that spirit? No. That comes with the flesh. Okay? Yah, they're saying if you're being saved, if you have the Spirit of Yah in you, if you have the Holy Spirit, that means you have the Spirit of Yah in you. You're being made holy day and day through the process of sanctification. He said, you didn't receive a spirit of slavery. The Ruach HaKodesh is not a spirit of slavery for us to walk in fear. Only in the end, the fearful and the cowards, the fearful and the cowards are on the outside, and the dogs. Maybe that was the reason why when I had the dream, this one person represents the dog, because they were lame. And it was a puppy, it was a dog. And they clearly wanted help, and they were coming to me for help. Only the dogs, the fearful and the cowards are on the outside. Yah says, Paul is saying you didn't receive a spirit of slavery again. He's talking about Adam and Eve to fear. But you received the spirit of sonship by which we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself witnesses with our spirit that we are the children of Yah. So if we have his Ruach, it witnesses that we are the children of Yah. And so I want to show you the revelation that the Father gave me as I was preparing this lesson about water and fire. We know we have to be baptized and immersed by water and by fire, right? And so I want to take you to this revelation of water and fire. Not only us, But in 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 7, it reads, Peter says, first knowing this, that in the last days that scoffers will come walking around according to their own lust. And they're going to say, where's the promise of his coming? I thought he was coming. For from which time the fathers fell asleep, all things remain so from the beginning of creation. For this, they will willingly forget that the heavens of old, okay, and the earth rose up from the water. Remember, in the beginning, the earth was void. It was coming up from water. Remember, in the beginning? Remember the previous earth that was destroyed. Remember with Noah. Remember that earth rose up from the waters. They willingly forget that the earth rose up from the waters. Do you see that? The waters represent the cleansing. It represents the cleansing. That's why we have to be baptized or immersed in water. Okay? The earth rose up from the waters via the flood. Okay? And by the means of water, by the word of Yah, he says, through which the world, which then was being flooded by water, perished. But the heavens and the earth now, having been stored up by the same word, okay, now it's being kept for fire. Do you see this? Do you see this? It's being kept for fire to the day of judgment and destruction of wicked men. Water and fire, the previous earth, water and fire. We have to be baptized by water and fire. The previous earth was being cleansed through water and fire. Water and fire. Flood, and then it's being kept once again for fire. I wanted to show you that. I couldn't believe that. So I want to talk now, because we're getting close to the end, about the influence of the whore of Babylon. When we think about the influence of the whore, when we take pleasure, because that's what this is all about, taking pleasure in unrighteousness, we cannot think that we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want, how we want it. We cannot think that we can fornicate, that we can commit adultery, that we can lie, that we can steal, that we can be idolaters, that we can practice sexual immorality, homosexuality, change our sex from the sex that he changed us, do anything we want, participate in witchcraft, watch anything we want, listen to anything we want, be lukewarm, compromise, mix with the world, love the world, be influenced by the world, love lies, reject the truth of his word, reject his salvation, his son. We cannot think that we can have little faith, the size of a mustard seed. We cannot think that we can do all of these things and drink from the cup of the whore of Babylon and still think that we will receive the crown of life. Do you know that there are people who actually believe this? There are people who actually believe this. I can be carnal and holy. I can live right and wrong. I can be hot and cold. You cannot think that you can do all of the aforementioned things and still think that I will receive the crown of life. You cannot do all of these things and think that I will hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of my salvation. There are people who really think that they can live a life as an unfaithful servant and then boom, you in the kingdom. This is delusion. This is delusion. The Father and the Son has said be ye holy, for I, Yah, your Father, am holy. Be ye perfect, because I, your Father, am perfect. Yahusha said, let no man deceive you. He told us, come out from among them and be ye separate. Because it looks good, because it feels good, doesn't mean that it's good. Remember Adam and Eve. Remember Eve. They practiced self-will and no control, no self-control. When Satan showed up on the scene to test them, they failed. He was allowed to test them. Do you not think that Yah could have intervened? He knew he was coming. It says the lamb was slain before the foundations of the world. He already knew what was going to happen. They were allowed to. He didn't even spare his own son from being tested by Satan. Do you think we're going to be? He's not getting ready to stop him and say, don't do it. They had a choice, and so do we. When Satan showed up on the scene to test them, they failed. There was no restraint. There was no resistance. They didn't resist him. He said, resist Satan, he will flee. They didn't resist him. They received him. Not only did they receive him, they ate his fruit. They obeyed him, and they became a slave to sin. They became a slave to the flesh. And that's why I keep talking about that embedded covenant. The world is spiraling out of control. It's spiraling out of control. The love of Yah is waxing cold. This world is drunk with the wine from the cup that's coming from the whore of Babylon. We are literally in the do what thou wilt generation. Do whatever you want. Yahusha told his father, take this cup from me. But if not my will, then he said, your will. The father Yah didn't tell Yahusha when he came to take away this cup. He didn't say, well, do what thou wilt. Yahusha said, not my will, your will. Not self-will, but your will. It takes discipline and self-control and a genuine love for the Father and the Son to be able to reject the poison of this world. In order to remain untainted, to be unblemished by it, it takes when I was putting the key in my door, that's what I was hearing. It is going to take self-discipline in order to remain untainted and unspotted from this world. I was hearing it is going to take self-discipline. Because you will, if you lack self-control right now in this age, if you are influenced by the world, you are already in its web. You are already in its web. And I want to show you something that the Father Yah brought to my attention. This is a web. This is a web. And I want to bring up 3 interesting facts about a web. It says the web informs the spider when there is prey trapped inside. So when there is a prey, when there's an insect or fly that has been caught in the web that the spider itself has spun, the web itself informs like communication. When you see that circular, do you see that it's almost like somebody's putting you in a spell, like they have the Looney Tune? The web acts as a tool of communication to inform the spider when there is prey trapped inside. It says that some spiders, particularly the large family known as orb weavers, actively decorate their webs with extra silk designs known as stabilamenta. So I'm going to go back to that word in a minute. And it says a final, many spiders actually replace their entire web every single day. So they replace this every day. They decorate the web. A web is a trap. A web is a trap. Let me say this again. A web is a trap. And as I looked at that word, the Ruach had me zoom in. Stabilimenta. The root word is stability. Stable. It's not stable, faith. Yes, it is. To be stable means to be steady, to continue. So the spider intentionally decorates this web and puts extra silk designs on it. Make it, dress it up, make it look extra desirable. Remember that, Eve? Oh, the tree, it looks desirable to make one wise. She was entering into the web and didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. Are you looking at this? A web is a trap. It's an entanglement. You've ever heard people say, I got myself in an entanglement, a situation, and they replace it every day to keep this trap fresh. They continue to bring attention to it. The web. Look what the Father Yah brought to my attention. The World Wide Web. www. World Wide Web. The world is a web. It is a trap. That's why he says, love not the world, neither things that are in the world, because the world is a trap. It is a web. World Wide Web. World Wide Web. World Wide Web. The web. Internet. The web is a net. Enter into the net. Enter into this trap. You have to be careful of what web sites you are on. Because in this web is self-indulgence. Self-indulgence. Indulging in all the flesh. Remember, Satan is the prince of the air. He is the prince of the air. I'm not saying that the internet is sin, but the majority of the people, the way that they're using it, because we have to use it for our work, if you work from home, but many people are on the internet and they're on there watching sexual immorality, watching pornography, lusting, the web, they're on there and they're turning you away from the Father, telling you many of his own sheep. Many of the sheep of Yah are in the web. They're in the World Wide Web. They're in the web of the world. Whatever the world is telling them, they're lending their ear, believing every wind of doctrine. Oh, you need to buy this. You need to wear this. Put on this dress. Buy these shoes. You know you need these shoes. Listen to this. Do what they're telling you to do. What is Kim Kardashian wearing? Oh, she wearing this lipstick? Oh, go buy that. This is on sale. We got a Black Friday. We got cyberspace sale. Do what thou wilt. The internet and the web, for the most part, is a trap. And it can be a trap if you are in the flesh, because you use it unworthily, unrighteously. The world is a voice. He says, my sheep know my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. His word is his voice. What are you allowing yourself to be influenced by? What are you allowing yourself, and what evils are you allowing to distract you away from the Father? Enter into the web. Because the internet and the web is a voice. It's a voice. Listen to me again. It is a voice. Many of the sheep of Yahusha in the body are in the web. They are in the world. They're claiming that they're in the Father Yah and in Yahusha, but they're in the trap. They're in the world. They're mixing with the world. They're listening to the voice of the world. Oh, well, that was the old law. That was the old, that word was for then. That's not for now. Oh, I'm a New Testament believer now. Oh, he set us free from that law. We don't have to do that. Oh, we don't have to dress modestly. I can wear a crop top, and I can have my boobs showing. I can have my butt cheeks out on social media, and then I can go to church tomorrow. Whatever this, we are in the do what thou will. Oh yeah, my body is, yeah, I can have an abortion because I'm not ready right now. Yeah, pastor is right. I have the right to do what I want. Yeah, it's healthcare. The people of Yah, we cannot be influenced. And I can't say this enough. We cannot be influenced by the world. You have to know the voice of the master. There are so many voices that are in our ears every day, so much so that we can't even hear the Father when he's speaking to us. Who are you listening to? Who is influencing you and your thoughts to turn away? Paul said, who has bewitched you? Who has bewitched you to turn you away from the Father Yah, to believe such falsehoods? That's why it's called the internet, because the world is a net. It's a trap. And once you get in its web, it's hard to get out. Self-indulgence is gluttony, is pride, is vainglory, vanity, slothfulness, laziness, idleness, without care, lust, envy, jealousy, outbursts of anger, a lack of self-control, no self-regulation. I don't control my impulses. I don't govern my thoughts, my behaviors. Whatever I'm tempted to do, I just give in to my temptation. That's self-indulgence. The Father Yah said, it has been appointed to all men to die, and then is judgment. There's no such thing as no second chance at salvation. He's no longer winking at our ignorance. He has appointed all men to die. And then once you die, you go straight to judgment. Satan does nothing, let me say this, without a plan. And there are many principalities, many evil rulers that he has planted in this earth to keep you chasing after wealth and worldly pleasures. Everywhere you look, commercials on TV, on the internet, on the radio, He's got everything on lock. Google something, and I guarantee you, it's on the World Wide Web. You're gonna see it show up. If on social media, on if Facebook, it's gonna show up everywhere. You're like, how is this showing up here? I was just looking up for some socks. Next thing you know, all these socks ads come. Oh, we got the best socks. These socks walk you to work. Where do you think that's coming from? Where do you think it's coming from? Self-indulgence, a lack of self-control, the world, the internet. That's why they call influencers. They have people who are influencing you to plant seeds in you, to keep you chasing. Oh, well, you need to buy this shirt because Kim Kardashian bought it, or this influencer on YouTube is bought this product, so you have to go and get this. Oh, and this is a must-have. They got you chasing after vanity, after wealth. They telling you what's important. They're in your ear telling you what's important, or showing you got to have this. This is a must-have. This is on sale. And then we're spending our life savings running after worldly lust, pleasures, money, storing up things that the moth can get to, that the thieves can steal. Willingly listening to cotton candy salvation that's not by a preacher that's got salt in them, that's got sugar in him and not salt. Listening to a sweet doctrine that's watered down, a doctrine that allows anything and accepts everyone and everything. There's no standards. You can be carnal and holy. You can be hot and cold. You can be lukewarm. There's no long suffering. You're gonna get raptured up out of here. Nothing's gonna happen to you. No trials, no tribulations. No faith is required. All you need is faith the size of a mustard seed, just a little faith. Even though Yahushua rebuked them and said, "Oh, ye of little faith," wasn't talking about the size of your faith. It was comparing a mustard tree and how a mustard tree grows tall and is stable and is able to resist environmental factors, in other cases would take it out. No self-control equals nakedness. It equals no shame. If you say you're a believer, but you live a life that is not restrained, you are self-indulgent in every lust of your flesh, you live a life with no self-control, then your faith is dead. If you live a life of self-indulgence, a life where you are led by your flesh to fulfill every lust that is in you, and you have no self-discipline, no self-control, no integrity, your faith is dead. And I'm going to tell you again, your faith is dead. If you can, it's no way you're going to see the kingdom without self-discipline. Because Paul even told you, evil, I have a desire to do what's right, but evil is always lurking, it's always near lurking, distracting me. Come on over here. Come over here. Buy this. Do this. Do what you feel. It's your body. You can do what you want with it. Go on and get that abortion, girl. Anybody got no time for that? You made a mistake. Yahushua said, don't call me Lord, Lord. Don't say master, master. And you do not what I say. There's going to be many people who say, on that day, I prophesied in your name. I cast out demons. I did all these things. You were my master. I called you Lord. He said, but you never made me Lord of your life. You called me master, but I never mastered you. Come on now. You never made me master. You called me. You gave me the title. You called me your Lord. You called me your master. That's just a title. He said, but you never made me Lord. You never made me master. You use lip service. You worship me with your lip and your mouth, but your heart was far from me. You never made me ruler over your life. You just talked about it, but you wasn't about me. We all need to pray, Father, am I in a trap? Am I blind? And I don't know it. Am I in a trap? Pray and ask the Father, am I in the trap of the whore of Babylon? Am I in the trap? Because she represents the world. Because we cannot lead others out of the trap if we ourselves are entangled in it. You see, your effect to witness is weakened when you're still living your life like you're ruled by your flesh. And because there is no difference, you're no threat to Satan's kingdom because he has something in you. You hear what I said? Because there is no difference between you and the world, you're no threat to Satan's kingdom. He doesn't care about you singing in the choir, preaching, active in church, going to church every week. He does not care about any of those things. You put a hair wrap on, you got your tassels. If you are still living according to the flesh, I'm at the Beyonce concert, but I'm gonna be singing in church tomorrow. Satan does not care. You are no threat to Satan's kingdoms. You know why? Because he can look in you. He said, she still has something of me in her. He has something in you. When Yahusha told his disciples that the prince of this world is coming and he has nothing in me. He said the prince of this world is coming. He has nothing in me. What he was really saying was he has no advantage in me. He has no power over me. He has no power or advantage in my life. The scripture tells us, give no place to the devil. Don't give him a chance. Don't give him a foothold. A lot of times we open doors and then we're wondering why we're being attacked. You see, self-discipline tells me that there should be nothing in me that resembles the world. Self-discipline tells me that as I grow in sanctification and holiness, I should look less and act less like the world. Self-discipline, self-control tells me that I must practice restraint and I cannot be influenced by the world. Because social media, the web is full of traps. That's why they're called influencers, because they're trying to influence you. They're getting paid big bucks. People don't even have there are teenagers who are getting paid six-figure income to influence you, to turn you away from the Father. Satan is supplying them with everything they need financially so that they can influence you to turn away from the Father, to live a life that is carnal and that is in the flesh. And you can bet your life savings that these influencers, they're coming from the world and they're not coming from Yah. They're not influencing you in the things that are of the Father. The church is seeking their identity and their validation from the world. Do you hear me? They're mixing in with the world. Instead of living their lives like they're pilgrims passing through this world, they're actively living for the world because the world has something in them. And what's even sadder is the fact that we were called to be the salt of the earth. We're supposed to be the light that drives out the darkness. Yet instead of influencing them, instead of the church influencing the world world has influenced many in the church, many in the body, to be everything but a child of Yah. In the modern day Christian church has no discipline, no self-control. They practice no self-restraint. That's why they can go to a Beyonce concert on Saturday. They can go to a Beyonce concert on Saturday night, sing her abominable songs, then turn right around and praise the same God of the Bible. They can go to her concert on Saturday night and then turn around and read the same Bible that Beyonce said just 8 hours ago that she was gonna stick up her vagina to plug up her menstrual. Did you hear what I just said? The modern day church, most of them, and I saw so many of them, active in church, singing in the choir, preaching. I saw pastors and their wives at the Beyonce concert. People who are very active. Oh, praise the Lord, praise God. They at the Beyonce concert on Saturday night, singing her abominable songs. On Saturday night, singing the same song from the same Bible pages that they're going to turn around and read 8 hours later, that Beyonce just said she's going to stick up her vagina to plug up her menstrual. Sweet and bitter water do not flow out of the same faucet. The church is heavily influenced by the world and has mixed with the world. Even though Yah has said, he who is a friend of the world is an enemy to him. And the church is going to be judged. And don't get me started on this Christian, so-called Christian gospel music industry, because they're a joke. The Christian gospel music industry are a joke. The world does not respect them. They don't respect them. They don't respect them at all. They're not influencing anyone. You want to say it? They're heavily influenced by the world. They are a joke. And that's why the world doesn't respect them. Again, the church is not influencing the world. The church has lost its saw. No one is looking at Kirk Franklin, CeCe Winans, Yolanda Adams. No one is looking at these so-called gospel artists, these people, Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar, Jamal Bryant. No one's looking at the modern day church and wanting to repent from their sins. No one is looking at them and saying, I want to be saved. You know why? Because they're carnal. They have given in to the lust of their flesh, and they look just like the world. They blend in like the world. They have no salt. It is carnal pastors like Jamal Bryant, and even here in Detroit, Reverend Wendell Anthony, to tell them that abortion is a woman's choice to choose. No one in the world is looking at the average believer and saying, you know what, because of how you live your life, I want to repent and be immersed in water. I've changed my mind because of how you live. You have influenced me to change my mind about sin. You know what? I was going to commit abortion, but because of your witness, I have changed my mind. No one is looking at the average believer and saying, you know what? I want to stop fornicating because of you, because you are saving yourself. You showed me the word. You have witnessed to me. I want to be saved and I want to stop fornicating. I want to give up smoking marijuana. I want to stop masturbating. I want to stop watching pornography. No one is, what kind of influence are you having? This is how you will know what power and influence you have. Those of you who are listening to the sound of my voice. If you have an influence where those that are around you, because they are in your presence, they now want to stop sinning. They want to elevate up to the standards of the Father Yah because you're pointing them to Yahusha. Is that what's happening right now? Is that what is happening right now? It is absolutely not. The reason why the world accepts the modern day Christian, modern day believers is because they're just like them. The world has something in them. Satan has something in them still. Galatians 6:14, the Apostle Paul, this is a very powerful statement. He says, but far be it from me to boast in anything or anyone except in the stake of our Master YAHUSHA MESSIAH. He said, through whom the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. Paul is saying, I don't have time to sit around and boast. I don't want to be recognized by the world. I don't want a Grammy award. I don't want a star on a Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't want to. See, remember when Satan fell, he pulled, I think it said, a third of the stars with them. These stars represent his children and the influence and the power that went with them. That's why you see all these celebrities having this so-called power. They have this power and this influence over the minds of those who walk in the flesh. Entertainment industry. Entertainment. Enter means to come in. The word tain, T-A-I-N, means to take hold of, to possess. And ment means the mind, to enter in, to take hold, and to possess my mind. That's what entertainment is. What are you allowing to enter into your spirit, to take hold and to possess your mind? What is it? Because a battle is about the mind. If he can get your mind, he got the mind and it's you. He wants the baby. He wants them in from the womb. We have to train up our children in the way that they should go when they are younger. Paul is saying here, look, I don't have time to boast in myself or anyone except from the crucifixion or the stake of our Master YAHUSHA MESSIAH. He says, through whom the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. You know what Paul is saying there in Galatians 6:14? He's saying, I am dead to the world. The world, he's saying, is dead to me. I have been crucified in YAHUSHA MESSIAH, being baptized and being immersed by water and by fire. He said, the world is dead to me. When he said the world has been crucified to me, the crucifixion represents death. He says, look, the world has been dead through YAHUSHA MESSIAH and his atoning sacrifice and what he did on the stake, on the tree. Paul is saying the world is dead to me. The world has nothing in me. The world is dead to me and I am dead to the world. That's why it says the world loves their own. And he says, and the world will hate you. YAHUSHA said, like they hated me. When you don't have the world in you, then people look at you like you're strange. Because they know those that are theirs. They welcome those that are there. Paul said the world is dead to me. Can you say that? He said the world is dead to me. And I'm dead to the world. Those of us who are in Yah and YAHUSHA, the world look at us and say, oh, you dead to me. You ever heard someone get mad and say, you dead to me? The world is dead to me, Paul is saying, and I'm dead to the world. This is a powerful statement. We have been slaves to the world long enough. YAHUSHA has come to set you free. How long do you want to be a slave? Because this world is dying. This world is perishing and it's getting ready to soon be judged. The whore of Babylon is going to be judged. And so the same choice, here we are again with the same choice. Once again, man must make a choice where they want to spend eternity. We're here. This is where we are. We now have the final opportunity to exercise the self-control that our forefathers didn't exercise. We now have that opportunity to do it right now. And as I said earlier, it is going to take self-control to not be influenced by this world. It is going to take self-control to remain unspotted in order for us to see the kingdom. We have to remember, this is not our home. We are pilgrims passing through. This is not our home. Live your life like you're passing through. A life that is unspotted, untainted by the world. A life where you no longer obey the lust of your flesh, but you walk according to the Spirit. Because if you do not have the Spirit, you are none of His. I don't care how much you go to church. I don't care if you got your JC or your God hat and banner on. Those things don't matter. It's your heart and it's your mind. Does Satan have anything in you? I'm going to go ahead and bring my sister in.
Hallelujah. Oh my goodness. Ooh, what a powerful message on self-control. I truly enjoyed this message and how you started out with just going over just the synonyms of self-control, and then moving into Matthew 16:24.
Okay.
Yes, with you just denying yourself, and and taking up that stake that Yahusha, when he died, and following after Yahusha, and just over the Blue Letter Bible for in the same context of self-denial in Matthew 16. And one that stood out to me is to forget oneself, lose sight of oneself and one's own interests, and just how you honed in on, desiring what Yah have for you, and not those things of yourself, dying to yourself and saying, Yah, I want more of you. What do you have me to desire? And just going over the ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible. I did not know that self-control means season or salt, and I was just in awe of that, and just
Season with salt.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just going over, what the elements of and how salt preserves, and it doesn't burn in fire, and it cannot be smothered. I just love how you brought that.
That's how you able to endure, because it represents covenant. All the covenants. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And how it goes back to long suffering, and then just talking about the covenant of salt, and how with the grain and the meat offering, and the covenant with David, as well as the Levitical priesthood, and just going into what self-control is. I love those pictures, those earthly examples, with the kid with the cookie, and you leave it on the table, and infidelity, as well as pornography and fornication, just giving that the earthly examples of how one can lose themselves when we are not practicing self-control. And just going over what really I'm telling you, what really helped seal this was in the beginning, and going over of 2 Timothy 1:17, and how you illustrate that Yah did not give us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and self-control, which is a sound mind. And then you brought in, the acts in the garden that caused Adam and Eve to show the self-control that that they lost when Eve was deceived, and Adam disobeyed the word of Yah. And I'm telling you, opened it up. And then moving on, when you talked about the test, that y'all didn't leave, y'all left at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and just as well as he leaving the test for us and through, and with the nations and different things, because how would he know, you know what I'm saying? The love that we have for him without those tests and just
Yeah,
going
because he said those who love him keep his commandments. He's not
absolutely.
forcing you. He needs to know that you're going to choose him. That's like you. Who want to be in a relationship with somebody and you got to try to force and trick them into, no, you want to know, are you going to? That's why the cookies was on the table. Or like I said, don't touch it. Let's see what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just how you set us up with, second, First Timothy, with in regards to no, I'm sorry. When we go into John, second verses 15 through 17, the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh and the pride of life, as it relates to the knowledge of tree of the knowledge of the good, good and evil.
The tree of knowledge of good and
evil. Yes. And how that is the same mirror of the works of the flesh and how
that was a fruit that was on the tree.
Yes.
That's what it bore. That's what it bore and brought forth.
Yes.
We immediately became flesh. And that's how man is living. Mm-hmm. We have a covenant with the works of the flesh, and in order to get back, we have to grow in the fruits of the spirit. We have to be fruitful and multiply and increase and abide. So that's the reason. It's like all time.
Absolutely. And how we became that fallen nature, and then that transitioned us into Paul. And I just love how you put, transition right into Paul and showing accounts of how, we struggle with sin and how sin can be a struggle in our mind and just,
and only because of the flesh that's there.
Yeah.
Otherwise we wouldn't be struggling if it wasn't there.
Absolutely. And showing us, what it's like to be of self-control in 2 Peter, 1, 3 through 10, and then verses of that lack of self-control, which is 2 Peter 2 and 9 through 22. And then going into Paul and talking about sin, and not only just talking about sin, but also about the law of sin and death and accounts as it related to those things that happened in the garden. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just saying all of that. And then let's not forget the water and fire revelation. I was like, what?
Yep, even the earth.
Yes. And so then moving on to, just talking about, the harlot, and how the world is drinking from her cup, and then transitioning also into the web. Now I was just like, okay, yeah. This lesson, I'm telling you, was so powerful because it was layer upon layer of powerfulness and revelation. And the web that, like the spider, the web informs that spider when the prey is trapped on it. And then just talking about, now I know sometimes I get tongue tied on certain words, but this what really stood out, the stabilimenta.
Yeah.
Yes. And just that root of stability and just, and then
stable. Yep.
Yes, being stable and how they design it and decorate it, and and they replace it in entirely every day.
Yeah, that's how the enemy do. He dressed up everything wicked and make it look good, and that's what he did with the tree.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And that's why, people can't get away from these holidays and different.
Yeah, the Christmas, I thought about that, the Christmas tree.
And
deck trees with silver and gold.
Yes, absolutely, because it's a trap. And then going into the WWW, World Wide Web, and how that, and just looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Yes, like the web, the internet.
Enter the net.
Yeah, into the net. And I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, okay.
Internet, so we can entertain you, so we can
Yeah.
you can come in and we can possess and your
Yeah.
mind.
Mm-hmm. And
That's why it
you.
said in that movie, they live and watch TV.
Yeah. Obey. Yeah.
Obey.
Mm-hmm. And you know, and it influence you and sway you if you aren't, you know, like you said, if you're not careful of how you use it. And just going into the last thing is, you know, going into self-indulgence and you know, feeding your passions of the flesh. And you know, that last powerful scripture, Galatians 6:14, sealed it off. Like, you know, Paul said, you know, the world is dead to him through the crucifixion of Yahushua.
Yeah, the
You know,
world is dead to him.
yes, and so we have to be in same mirror.
Have same mindset.
Yes, and let that
That's
world.
how it's looking at us.
Yes, absolutely.
It don't want nothing to do with us. Ain't nobody in the
Yes.
world trying to
Yeah, they call us
walk
Bible
right.
thumpers and everything
Yeah,
else.
they call us
Holy
Bible
rollers.
thumpers and all that. Whole yep. And I said thump, roll.
Right?
Where we
But
rolling.
I'm telling you, this lesson was just a powerful fruit to display today, because this is one area that majority of the world is falling, and they falling for the same trick that our, you know, foreparents Adam and Eve fell for. And you know, because of that embedded covenant of the flesh, you know, once they partake of the fruit, you know, that corruption of the works of the flesh came upon us, and now we are suffering because of it. But we can die if we die daily, you know, to sin, then we can
have those cravings. You don't have cravings to do things that you like.
Absolutely. But you got to be able to resist and resist Satan, and he will flee. And so I give praise to Yah. Hallelujah, sis. You know, this was, you know, I'm telling you, a beautiful lesson on self-control.
Hallelujah.
Yes, hallelujah.
Yes, I didn't keep y'all long today, like an hour or something. I'm like, hey.
I couldn't tell.
I'm like, Bob. I'm like, what?
I can tell I'm writing, I'm scribing, and I'm making sure. But I'm telling you, it was really, really thorough, and very powerful, and especially with Paul and the connection, you know, on sin and self-control. You could see it all through the books that you presented. So I give praise to Yah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And so we're gonna instead of ending with a song today, I have a short video that I'm going to end with. It's giving you an update of what is going on with my plant Joseph. There's been a turn of events, so we're gonna end with that, and we pray that Yah bless and keep you, that He make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you, that He lifts up His countenance upon you and give you peace. In Yahusha's name, so be it. Shalom.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. Today is Friday, December the 8th, 2023. And I wanted to update you concerning my plan Joseph. There have been some turn of events. There have been some things that have changed. So the last time I recorded, I was replanting Joseph, giving him a new pot as being led by the Ruach, and I began noticing within like a week or so after, maybe two, within a week or two, I noticed that the leaves have been dying. And so I wanted to show you what is going on here. So as you can see here, all of the leaves are dying. They're all wilting and withering, and I began to pray because I was a little confused, because I was led, you know, to give him a new pot, and this is the new pot. When I did the vlog on last month in November, And I noticed that the little leaf here that was growing up with this stalk, which I'm going to show you in a moment, I noticed it stopped growing. It no longer grew any further since I repotted. But as you can see here, they're all wilting, and they're just all withering away. Look at them. This one is just all wilting away. And so I began to pray to the Father concerning these things, because I didn't understand, what is going on. And I'm thinking, okay, Father, what is going on? Why is Joseph dying? And I heard the Ruach speak to me concerning this plant. So what I'm going to show you, it'll answer the question, because he did respond to me. And so, remember I told you that there was a stalk, a branch that was coming forth from the stalk. And so this is a question that I asked, because as you can see, you can't see the fullness in the camera. I asked the Father, I said, well, how is this stalk continuing to grow? Because that's what I was worried about. I said, well, if the rest of the plant is withering, as you can see, they've all withered. They're not up and perky like they were before. This baby one has died. Well, it's no longer growing, so it just stopped growing, because the rest of the plant, as you can see, they're all laying down, they're dying. And I asked the Father, and I said, well, this, is growing. When you look here, it's growing literally out of the stalk. And I said, how is this branch dying? I was waiting for this branch to stop growing, just like this leaf, just literally, the leaf just stopped growing. So I'm waiting for this stalk here. I said, well, surely this is going to stop growing. No. Look at what is going on, guys. Hallelujah. Look at what is going on. Look at this. Look at this stalk here. And I'm trying to see if I can make it plain and clear. But look here. Look at what is going on. I wanted to show you. I had to turn it sideways because it's literally coming out of my blinds. Let me back up so you can see it. Look at this. Look at this, guys. If I kind of move this one out of the way, you can actually see it. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Look at this. Look at what it is. Look at what is. I'm going to take this out completely so that you can see. Look at this. Look at how tall. Move this here. Look at how tall this one is. Do you see this? Do you see this? Look at how tall it is. Look at how tall it is and how tall it has grown. Literally. And now I'm going to do a close-up so that you can see. Look at the new ears. Look at the buds that are coming in. Do you see that? Literally, this thing has been growing like a weed. When you guys first saw it, it did not look like this. Look at this, guys. Look. Look at what's happening here. You see this? Look at this. Look at what the Father Yah is doing. And what was brought to my attention while I was in the midst of prayer this week, because I could not understand, and I still do not understand, and I had to pull it back because it's going through the blinds. And I said, Father Yah, how is this branch that is connected to this stalk? Look at it. It's growing from the same stalk that is dying. I had to take off one of these green petals because it was turning yellow and it was turning the rest of the plant. I had to take it off so that it wouldn't affect the rest of the plant, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the plant, look at the leaves are all withering. They're not coming back up. This one, this baby one, is no longer growing anymore. It's all stopped. Look at the other ones, just all laying on it. And I said, Father, yeah, how can this be? What is really going on? How is this branch growing from the same stalk that is dying? Literally, this stalk is dying. The plant, look at the leaves, they're dying. They're withering away. And I'm thinking, and I asked the Father, yeah, I said, how is this branch still growing? This branch has been continuing to grow since I last came before you with the vlog in November. How is this branch not only growing but thriving and getting ready to bring forth new buds in a season when this plant is normally dead or dormant? This is not the time that this plant begins to bring forth new life. It is normally dead and dormant. It is normally dry and it looks like this. Those of you who've been with the ministry, I've shown you throughout each season what it looks like. This is something new that the Father Yah is doing. And what the Ruach gave me was Isaiah 43:19, where he says, behold, I do a new thing. I am getting ready to do a new thing. He says, do you not see it? Do you not see it? I'm getting ready to do something new. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not see it? Do you guys not see what is happening? He said, behold, I am about to do something new. I do a new thing. He says, now it shall spring forth. And you shall know it. He said, do you not see it? Do you not perceive it? Do you not know? He said, indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness, and I will cause streams in the desert. I will make a way in the wilderness. This plant is drying out. This plant is dying. Okay? Withering away, dry, like a dry wilderness. And he says, I am going to make a way in the wilderness, and I will cause streams to grow in the desert. He will make a way even when things look hopeless, even when they look like they are dying. The Father Yah says, I'm going to do something new. I can cause rivers to flow in the desert. I can make a way in the wilderness. And this, I have been in my wilderness season, and the Father Yah is showing me I'm going to do something new. And what I heard the Ruach say, because I asked, how is this plant growing when it is directly connected to this stalk, this tree that is dying? How is it not only growing, but it's thriving? And what the Father Yah said, and what I heard the Ruach say, is that I can, even in the midst of everything that is dying around you, I can sustain you. Even when everything around you is dying, I can sustain you. I can cause you to live. And it took me back to Ezekiel 37. Can these dry bones live? Can they live? This is a nation of people, Yasharel, whose bones were very dry, whose bones were dead, lying in that wilderness, dry bones. Can these bones live? Can this plant thrive and grow and live even in the midst of everything around it that is dying? And I said, oh my goodness, hallelujah. That's what the Ruach told me. Even in the midst of everything that is dying, we live in a world that is perishing, in a world that is dying. And even though we're in it, the Father Yah says, I can sustain you. This plant is thriving in a habitat while it's connected to something that is dying, and the Father Yah is still sustaining it. It did not stop its growth. I was literally waiting for it to stop its growth, because this is like literally where the plant was when it started dying. Look at how much further it has grown. And now the new buds are coming forth. Hallelujah. I give Yah some praise. I will keep you updated as far as what he is doing when the buds come forth. This has never happened. This plant is always died in the fall, and that's it. The Father Yah is doing a new thing. He is doing something new. Isaiah 43:19, Yah says, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Hallelujah. It has been springing forth. He says, do you not see it? Do you not perceive it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness and will cause streams in the desert. And so I thank the Father Yah once again for showing his great wonders. And I just look forward to seeing what he's going to do. Shalom.